Today, we're going to be talking about working through cultural misunderstandings. So, cultural misunderstandings and what that all entails. Welcome back to another episode of Rhythm and Rome with Benef, Paul, and Trecia. Nice to see everyone.
What up, what up, what up, what
On
up?
the way.
Hello.
¿Qué pasó? Sorry,
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
mean to do that.
I feel like my forehead is just so shiny. So right now
Yeah,
I'm like,
so is mine.
Well, I
But-
mean, it is summertime now, so we just
Yeah.
passed,
I
first
know,
day of
I'm like,
summer.
hey,
So
it's my life. Yeah, so
welcome to
Yeah.
summer.
I'm fresh back off of my vacation and feeling very
Nice.
Okay, some
feeling
of us
very
are
dark
jealous. Some
and
of us are
sunny and
jealous.
itchy.
Yeah. Tell us where you
I
went.
had
Tell us where you went real quick. I'm sorry.
I went to the British Virgin Islands, so it was a lot of fun. We rented with two other couples, friends of ours, rented one of those Marine Max, and two of our couple friends, the husbands, they are the ones who captained and that boat. So it was fantastic.
Oh,
And they
that's
survived.
seafood.
It wasn't
I
Gilligan's
know.
Island.
We did
Congratulations, you
not.
guys
We made
survived. It
it.
wasn't,
We made
you
it.
know.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, we did not go from the Gulf of Mexico to the Virgin Islands. We flew into St. Thomas,
Smart.
Yeah.
then shuttled over to Nanny Key, where we picked up the boat.
Well, I'm glad you guys survived and everything because it looked like a very beautiful trip and stuff like that. So
It was,
dreamy, as
so
I classify it.
you
And so-
bet. So, and I'm sure we're going to be discussing some of that sometime down the road.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to be talking about working through cultural misunderstandings. So, cultural misunderstandings and what that all entails. Benef, you did a very interesting interview with our guest today. His name is Marv, and he's written about it, and just his experiences.
Yeah. So and I have working like in quotes because not only are we like working through them, but we're also like
Yeah.
physically working with people of different countries. And so I met Marv when I was stationed at Yokota Air Base in Japan. And he is a foreign area officer for Northeast Asia. So that's like Korea and Japan. And yeah, I spent like many years in Japan, many years in Korea. And I was like, I want you to tell us some of your stories because first of all, he's a great storyteller. And I will caveat that, yes, he actually has published books. So I have all of his books.
Wow.
This was his first book, which he wrote in like 2-hour blocks while he was stationed in Iraq.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
While he was listening to The Scorpion King, like that was playing in the background. Yes, The Rock. Yes,
That's awesome.
It's not one
Wow.
of his better
That is
movies,
wild.
I will say.
It wasn't one of his
Yeah.
better movies. You're
No,
absolutely right.
But he listens to that for all of his books. So he's got that one, and then he has a trilogy of they're all historical fiction. And so this is the trilogy with a Roman soldier in his life. And yeah, I was like, The Rock should be like, somehow you'd be paying him or something. I don't know, thanking him for being your inspiration. Because that like movie on repeat. I don't know.
No,
how he does that.
it was
Background
not
noise.
We're not going to be previewing movies, but I tend to agree with you. It was a shitty movie, but everyone has shitty movies.
Enjoyed it.
The Scorpion
Clearly,
King.
the fake scorpion like character
Yeah.
that he was not really great.
Look, if you go into it with not having to think about anything, it's a freaking fantastic movie, and you're looking at The Rock. That's all that matters.
And the inspiration for 4 books so far. So we will definitely put the link to the books and the link to his blog. Because he does a lot of writing about historical sites and military history, which he's a huge buff of, in particular for the Northeast Asia region, which we just don't get a lot of that type of history in school. So yeah. But I asked him about, working with other cultures. So having to work with other cultures. So
I went to the Defense Language Institute for a year and a half. for a rather intense period of language instruction that even our instructor likened to being launched off an aircraft carrier. But other than that, I mean, you kind of pick up things along the way, right? As part of learning language, you're learning culture, and you're learning those things that you should do and shouldn't do in Japanese company. And the same with Korea. And so during those courses, while it's not explicit, you're actually getting an awful lot of cultural background.
Saying was just like the differences between the way Americans communicate, and I didn't work with the Koreans, so the way that the Japanese communicate, and it's very, very different. And so like we say something, and for the most part, I feel like we mean what we say, or there's no hidden meaning behind it. Would you agree, or am I completely?
I think it's generally true with most casual American conversations. That's not necessarily true in Japan. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Mr. Baseball, Tom Selleck. He's having a conversation with his interpreter, and at one point, just completely frustrated, he says, just because you and I both speak English doesn't mean we're speaking the same language.
Right.
And it's so completely true, because even though his interpreter is speaking English, he's saying things in a way that are entirely Japanese. So not it's in Japan it's fairly rude to speak right at something, to speak directly about something. And so you don't hear the word no a lot in Japan. I mean, if you know what you're listening for, hear it a lot, but you'll never hear the word no, right?
Okay.
What you get a lot of time is the teeth sucking and Muzakashi, which means that's difficult.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that translates into no. But if you're just listening to what they're saying, he said it's difficult. And you have these weird cultural moments in language then where somebody who doesn't really know what he's hearing, or doesn't understand what he's hearing, takes that and tries to apply it literally. They come out of a meeting very happy. Oh, they said it's difficult. We're Americans. We do difficult before breakfast. Yeah, sure.
Right.
I hate to be the one to break it to you. He said no. No. He said it's difficult. Sure, trust me. He said no.
Being stationed at Yokota Air Base, I had to work with the Japanese government, and I did not receive any training on how to work with the Japanese, like anything. Like in fact, I didn't even really know what my job was going to be. And like my second or third day, I feel like it was the first week on the job, they were like, "Oh, you're going for negotiations. They got to redo the host nation agreement, special measures, something or other." And I'm like, "You want me to do what now? I got to negotiate? I don't even know what programs I'm in charge of." I mean, obviously, I wasn't like the lead negotiator. That was State Department, but still, the fact that if that person was going to turn to me and ask a question, I was going to be hosed. So like
it seems like
zero training.
And you probably weren't going to get any. It was one of those hurry up and learn on the job kind of thing. Look at past emails and whatever.
Well, thankfully, I did have two civilians, very competent, had been there a long time in the department, because they were my trainers. Like usually we have NCOs, but this time I had civilians, because there was I didn't understand anything about Japan. I mean, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't really do a whole lot of research or reading in advance, to be honest.
I think it's the same thing that we all go through when I'm sure it was the same in Korea. Like I remember going to like some stupid one of those briefings on, this is what you do, this is the culture, this is this, and it's like 30 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And you're now
30 minutes, and like, don't embarrass us. You're representing the American government. Don't act like an asshole.
And you wonder why it doesn't work.
It doesn't. I mean, especially with young soldiers.
Exactly.
I mean, and generally they aren't. I don't know if they work directly with other soldiers, but
I don't know if this.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, what I was gonna like tag in on was the fact that, do you think that obviously we're sort of government or military focused in on what we're saying, but I'm curious because you were talking, we don't get the training. Obviously, if a regular civilian, Trecia or someone is going to Japan or Korea, there aren't any. Like, how do we even work with? Because when we say work, I'm assuming we're not just talking about actually our jobs only, but we're just talking about just being out into the community and working with the community if we're trying to do something or if we're trying
All
to
of
go
that.
somewhere and all this
Yeah.
other stuff and putting it into play. So yeah, we have the discipline working for the government, yes, but it is some curiosity on how would that work in general, because I don't think it does work, at least for the westernized American.
You mean
Because
like an American well, did you get any training in the French culture from
hell
your
no.
organization? Yeah, I
Hell
mean, like,
no. The training that I got was I looked on the internal website and see what was to not do and what was to do. So it was training that you had to do yourself.
Well, self-training,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't believe in the self-training because not everybody, especially when you have an 8-hour job that you got to do your
it's
work,
gonna do it. Yeah.
who's going to have time to do it? It's just like you have to do the qualifications for different things. People are not going to pay attention to it, at least majority of people, I should say.
Well, and I think like, yeah, like, I mean, in the basics of how they come to make decisions or how in a workplace, this culture, like how they interact with each other, like these are things I
Yeah.
didn't know. And I don't know if that was part of your online training.
There was no, it was more of no, it wasn't. It was more of the obvious. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And that's why I say,
Yeah.
I guess I can compare it because I've been in the civilian markets for so long now. No, it was more of some etiquette. For example, even when I was in Germany or so on, it's about some etiquette, or it might be about the traditional thing that we already know that we see, you always greet someone when you're in anywhere, bonjour or whatever, the greeting of the day. That's a must. But that was it. But those are things that we already know. But to really immerse yourself and really get that communication down so if they're saying, a word that in America it might be something shady, that you're not going to take offense to it. So every day I'm still actually figuring that shit out as I go because
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
like,
but I think, and I think that's where I think on a civilian side, I mean,
yeah,
if we're talking on a broader scale, I mean, I
mhm,
think as you as the person who has to fulfill that job or in any situation, putting yourself in that situation, even in travel, you know, we have to take it upon ourselves to do a little bit more, of kind of a deep dive, especially if it's something where the language is going to be a barrier, right? Because Google's only going to take you so far. Your job is only going to take you so far.
yeah,
Obviously, they're going to do their job for corporate or anything, or I think or any avenue that way. They're only looking for compliance. They're not looking for trying to help you necessarily get
yeah,
through. So I think as you as a person have to take that upon yourself to do a deep dive and to make sure
Yeah.
that that you're going to be comfortable or to a degree where you're going to learn the basic language or nuances. I
the
mean, because
do's and don'ts or
that
something
to
like
me, that's
this.
the biggest thing. It's
Well,
okay, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to know the language, but if I can convey, the nuances of what I'm trying to say, or some kind of sign language or something to that, you're going to get that before, the
Mm.
language, right? So
No,
that's kind
yeah, I can see that. Go
yeah,
ahead,
it's
go
just
ahead.
understand. I mean, like I, yeah, but how? Like what books am I going to read to know how this particular group makes decisions? Like
well,
what type of body language do I need to be looking for?
how else do foreigners take, when I say foreigners, but I mean, how else does Europeans or Asians or anyone take Americans? They just look on TV.
Yeah,
But that's
fair
where
enough. Fair enough.
that's where it comes into play that I feel that no one takes it upon themselves, to include
Yeah.
myself, to the way how I try to immerse myself when I go to a different country is I literally do the thing you just said not to do, which is Google take you just certain way,
Oh, okay.
or YouTube take you a certain way. But I think that's where we have to be honest with ourselves and thumbs up and say that's where most civilians at least will go and say what to do or how does
Yeah.
people react to different
Well,
people, because
we
that's where
also
I've
have the
learned most of
benefit.
my things.
Well, folks also have the benefit of, something like us, right? Podcast, or,
Yes, exactly.
now we have
Through
what we like to
YouTube. Yep.
YouTube University of
Mhm.
other people's experiences and what they've gone through. So
I
you
think I
don't
got a whole
necessarily
bunch of degrees from there.
watch,
So
right?
that's, yeah.
And
I
have that.
wonder, because like if I were to go, I like watch Japanese or Korean television, I wonder if that would give me enough. Because we've said how our television isn't really a representation of who we
No.
are. And so if I'm just watching like Japanese or Korean TV, that's going to be enough. I mean, assuming I don't find the books that I need, but then am I going to sit around and read 10 books? Likely not.
No,
I
I
bought
think
them. I did buy a lot of books. I have not read them
unless
yet.
you're an avid reader, you would do that. But I
Yeah.
think most people learn on the fly, like visually. I'm a visual person.
Right.
And I
Like
do
a
like to read.
mentor or on the
Yeah.
job training.
Or hearsay or whatever. But it does get me in trouble because I still to this day, and it's been over 2.5 years living in Paris, for example, I still have little spickle spackle, I know that's a weird term, word. I mean, where I get like arguments with French people, because like, for example, one of my French friend will say, if we're gonna go to a cafe to go have lunch or coffee or something, he will say, okay, I'll collect you or I will shepherd you. What?
I know it's because he's translating it directly from French and it doesn't
Correctly.
make any damn sense. All right.
And I'm just like, what do you mean? I was like, no, what we normally would say is we'll meet at or something like this. But then he will sit there and he will discuss with me saying, well, we learned the British English and this is how I was like,
the British, they do some weird shit. So they have some weird.
No
They
shit.
have different terms too.
So this is
I'm
why
like,
I
that doesn't
say,
make any sense. Yeah.
absolutely. This is why I say, we, and while I think, Marv, I hope I said his name
Marv,
correctly. I think his books will be a great stepping stone, along with what Trecia said, with the different like podcasts, like what we do, and other avenue of stuff. But it sucks, but it is also good. I do the fast track learning. I know I'm going to go somewhere. Let me just look something up real quick, at least to get my foot wet. And then when I get there, I start to immerse, which is probably not the best way to do things. We should do it the way you just said, Trecia.
I want to clarify, Marv's books are fiction. His blog has some information about different, like all of his travels, but he hasn't so the books I was referring to were not written by Marv. His books are historical fiction, but
the thing that that I wish was more of an opportunity, and maybe there are some companies out there that do that now, because the specific question that we're trying to answer or discuss here is, do you have training when you're going to work, with different cultures and that sort of thing. I do think that there are some companies out there that that definitely train, at least not just language, but situational situations, particularly if that especially if that country is very specific in how they act and how they receive people and that sort of thing. I think that's very important. I do think that corporations need to do a better job of doing that, because although you can pay for me to go and give me housing and that sort of thing, biggest, I think, barrier, or the biggest apprehension, I would think, for person going abroad, or someone who's having to mingle in cultures, is getting those nuances and getting those things. And yes, a lot of that you're going to have to learn for yourself. But I think coming into or having a set expectation is a better training, per se.
But
or
like,
better help.
Agree. And like what you said, Paul, like those interactions where he's telling you he's going to come and shepherd you, and you're like, what? Because that's you. How is he going to know unless you tell him? And that's the same thing with any.
And this is the learning part. Yeah, this is how we're learning.
You're
with
saying
each other.
it And I may be speaking French, but I'm saying it like an English
Mhm.
speaker. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. So it's the same thing. He's saying English, but he's like a French
Yeah.
speaker.
I mean, but
And you're
technically
like,
he's not wrong. It's just it sounds barbaric.
it sounds weird. I mean, but
Right.
that's exactly the problem that we can run into when we're trying to speak another language.
Yes.
And that's where those nuances, Trecia, are so important, because like what I'm saying, and I don't speak Japanese, but with Marv's experience, speaking Japanese, it's like there's that understand, like if you're speaking Japanese to someone, they're going to have that assumption that what you're going to be speaking it the way they do,
Mhm.
which isn't true. And it's the same when they speak English. We're like, okay, they're speaking English.
Yeah.
So they'll say stuff and we're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
He gave an example of like, oh, it's difficult. And so Americans are like, well, how can we make it easier for you? Where he's trying to say, no, it's difficult. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me help you. And and like some general will just be like, it's not, we could fix this. And Marv will be like, no, they mean no.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Japanese don't want to say no. But we're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we want to know. Give me a yes or no. I don't fucking care. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but they're like, can't say no.
let me play devil's advocate for a little bit. Just step back one and take the role of, because I think it was you, Trecia, that mentioned it. That the company should do a better job of teaching whatever. If I'm playing devil's advocate, I don't think it's the company's responsibility to do that. I think their responsibility is to give you the tools and then you go about and do it yourself.
Yeah.
Granted, that's what you said is the compliance part. See, I gave you the tools. It's up to you to figure it out and don't mess up, kind of thing. So you're actually giving everybody should take, personal responsibility.
Like a CYA thing, right?
Yeah, but we know we don't do this. And I think some people like me like the challenge at times where I'm just, because when I got into Luxembourg City from New York, I literally was dropped in. I didn't even read anything about Luxembourg City. I knew of Luxembourg City, and the only reason why I knew of it was because General Patton is buried there. That was the most I knew of Luxembourg City, honest to God. And walked around, I was like, oh, okay. They got a whole bunch of castles too. Okay. Oh, they speak French. Oh, they also speak German, so
my
you're
thing
learning
is,
as you go.
yeah, and I get that. And yes, I do believe that it is up to you as the person to be able to take that information and use it. But also what I'm thinking is that if a company is investing the time to go internationally and is trying to, globalize and trying to expand their business, if they're going to send trained people from somewhere else and then it's going to plant them into another country, I think to some degree it is their responsibility to make sure that whoever they're putting into that position
Yeah.
is
Unfortunately,
prepared.
Well, I would agree if they want things to go smoothly, because at one American, I mean, several international incidents.
nobody
occur.
cares, but I'm just being truthful. They care about money.
But you could be
how
losing a lot of money.
But personally, I think that goes to money.
You don't think
Yes,
so?
you have to spend a
No.
little money to make it, but you have to spend the
Yeah.
money to make sure that that's the right person as well.
Right. But
Once they get it, they have to be
the
able to fund
the cheapest way is
And-
to give them the responsibility. Say, hey, we're giving you the tools,
I see what you're saying.
and the company
Yeah,
rather spend
That's fine. But
$10,000 versus individually spending
what's a week or
courses.
two for you to be able to immerse me or to put me in a room and say, okay, look, this is what we're trying to do. Or, hell, even 48 hours, 72 hours,
I'll
of
tell
saying,
you.
here, this is this. At least give me a rundown, because a lot of times, half of the time is I can't
Yeah.
even find the tools because I don't know what it is on this freaking intranet.
Oh,
So
I'm with you. I'm just playing
yeah,
devil's
so I
advocate,
just
but
think
yeah.
and that's what I mean. I'm not trying to say that it has to be an intensive,
No, I 100%
program
agree. But
doing
what they're
this,
gonna
but
do, is they're gonna literally, and those intranets are like haywire. You can't, especially the company that I work for, with like
yeah.
over 300,000 people.
Yeah.
in different languages and everything like that. No, what they're going to do is they're just going to give you the tools.
Mhm.
And then you figure out if you, oh yeah, there's a class, there's a shop that's going to go on. Now you got to figure out if you wanted to take that class, and you better not be late on any of your projects that you have to do. Do you see what I'm saying? So now you have to
Oh,
decide.
so it's like an additional duty, and they're like, "Ugh,
Exactly. That's
really?"
how they do it. They say,
Why
"See,
it should be part of why they should make sure that you're prepared, because now if someone goes there and they're not prepared, now it's part of the crisis management. But God forbid, do you want to test your crisis management system? No.
but that's what they do, because it's that checks and balance of, well, what is more profitable? And if as long as they're making their money, at least Western, I can't speak for all the others. I only can speak for, like, corporate companies, corporate America companies. A lot of them are just looking at the bottom dollar and saying, oh, I mean, we could be making trillions of dollars in one quarter, but still not enough to, you know what I mean, give
Yeah.
a very lengthy or healthy bonus or something like this.
Just to go
I'm
back.
with you.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally get where you're coming from in that. I think we're agreeing on that. I just want to touch a little bit more on, that whole hearing things wrong. We talked a little bit about that earlier, and about the kind of those nuances. And I think Marv had some really interesting things to say about that. So I think it would be a great idea for us to watch his information now and see what he has to say.
Yeah.
And then now, you had talked once about doing like trilateral meetings with Americans, Japanese, Korean, and so that would add another layer of.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, at least another layer, right? I mean, it's you got two cultures. You've got two cultures, Korea and Japan, who have known each other who have had relations for over 2,000 years. So they've got a ton of experience dealing with each other. And then you throw in us. We've only existed as a nation for 250 years. So we're like to them, we're like the bright young kid, the whiz kid, right? That everything goes right for us, and and things just luckily happen, and nothing terribly bad ever happens. But they're the old folks in the room. That said, they've got just the same problems as everybody else, trying to understand one another. When it comes to the cultural nuance, they've had a lot more time to figure it out. But 2,000 years apparently is not long enough. I mean, just to show you how hard these things are, how difficult it is to get there. There are just a lot of folks in both of the countries that really don't understand the other at all. That said, the trilateral, the three-way meetings can be really funny. I'm pretty sure I've told you this story before, but we're sitting down through a briefing, and somebody's mentioning, or somebody on the U.S. side is briefing about a pilot program. And my best friend at the time was sitting next to me. We're both in there. We both went to the Japanese course together, and we're listening to the interpreter in Japanese. And I swear I hear her use the word pirate. And I look over at my buddy. He looks over at me like, no, we weren't the best of students anyway. And so the chances are we made a mistake, and this professional interpreter, said the right thing.
All right.
So the brief continues on, and again, he mentions pilot program. And again, she says pirate. And now we're like, okay, stop. Because we're starting to see the quizzical looks, all across on both sides. Because the Korean interpreter's keying off the Japanese, not the English.
Oh.
And so now you've got two sides of the three in their minds thinking that the United States is somehow raising pirates. And it's just, we had to stop. Pilot program, not pirate. And
oh my God.
Was and a whole lot of relief, because that was a really weird thing to be briefing otherwise.
So is that because the R and the L there's like not a huge distinction between the sound, the way that we have it?
There's not. I mean, in Korean, it's one letter. The R and the L is a single letter, and so depending on where it falls into a word is how it's pronounced, and so it can go either way. And so it's a little more understandable there. The Japanese don't really have an L at all. They only have an R, and so you get a lot of those. You get a lot of those types of things, and of course, Hollywood makes good money off of that joke. Transposing the R's and the L's. Growing up, I grew up in in a home with the Korean stepmom. She was trying to help me with my math once, and we're doing long division, and she looks over my homework and she points to it and says, "That's long." And I remember saying, "Yeah, it's supposed to be." And she goes, "No, that's long." And I said, it's long division. It's supposed to be long." This went back and again, maybe I'm not the brightest, but this went back and forth a few times before I finally realized that no, she was telling me it's wrong, And I mean, these are the kind of things that happen, and how you slowly build an awareness of different cultures.
Yeah. Well, and so have you had anything where like you've been saying something and they're looking at you like you're insane, like you're speaking in Japanese or Korean, but maybe not pronouncing it right? Or
I've told you and Tom this story before, but when I first got to my liaison assignment, my first liaison assignment, the house that we moved into had a security system built into it. The company was Secom is what it's called. And so signed a whole bunch of paperwork when we moved into the house. Jungmin was on vacation visiting family when we first moved in. And so all of a sudden I'm at the office and I get a call. And the lady on the phone is very nice. She's explaining to me that there was one document that wasn't signed. And so we're going back and forth. Now I'm all of 4 months out of language school at this point. So I'm not the most fluent person anyway, but I'm holding my own so far, dealing with this lady, right up until the point that she tells me that a chicken's gonna come to the house. Let me stop for a second here. In Japanese, tori ni iku is to have and to take. In other words, to take something somewhere. Tori ni iku. Tori niku is chicken. And she's speaking fairly fast. And so all I heard was, I knew there was a document involved. I knew the house was involved. And all of a sudden now there's a chicken. And so I very innocently, assuming that the error is mine, I asked her, Tori niku? A chicken? And she responds, "Hi, tori niku." Yes, he's going to take it and go there. Oh my Lord, two or three times now I'm back and forth. And finally the last time I'm like, okay, I've got in my mind that this chicken with a Secom shirt's going to show up at my house with a document for me. And it's one of those things where I just gave up, right? I'm like, okay, I don't understand what's going on anymore. I thought I had this. I don't understand what's going on anymore. But we're just going to move past it. So I agreed. We hung up, and I swear, as soon as I hung up the phone, the grammar lesson came back to me, and it struck me. And I'm like, oh God, I guarantee she went home that night and told her husband, what a moron she was dealing with on the phone today.
Well, she wasn't laughing at you while you were repeating.
That was pretty embarrassing.
No, that's why I said I mean, because they can't pronounce things, but there are difference in nuances. Like, for example, the parts where Marv was talking about, the chicken story and so on. It's the same with because a German can't say certain words right, like sinking. For us, for them it's thinking about, but they can't use the TH. Whereas for us, it's when you say sinking, we're like, what,
that's
you're
a whole
going under?
Word. Well, and that's the same with the and that was really confusing because the R's and the L's in Japan, like they don't have the L, or they don't have the R. Which one do they have?
Well, they don't have the. I think
they don't have the L sound.
Sound.
And then the Koreans have one letter that could be an R or an L.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think we all do agree on, though, is that there will be cultural misunderstandings, and what we should do is not take them personal. Do not take them to heart, but take them as a learning experience. So that's really to
and that's where the preparation work that you're saying, Trecia, would help you to understand that. So me, the one that don't do like the shitty one, I don't do that. So I do take offense until somebody tells me,
God.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying, because I don't do the preparation like you guys. So I learned by trial and error. So
and getting angry at everybody. All right. Jeez.
Most of the time. Okay. I told you, whenever a French person rolled their eyes at me the first time, I was like, the fuck are you rolling your eyes at? Like, where I come from, you get your ass smacked.
my
But
God.
I'm just telling you how it was.
Okay.
I think we've we've come to the end of our show, and
Yes.
just want to say this was a great conversation, guys. I had fun with you guys today.
Yes.
It's good. A lot of laughing in this one. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I just want to say to you, our listeners and our viewers, thank you for tuning with us today. And please make sure that you tune in next Wednesday, when we have another great episode of Rhythm and Roll with Benef, Paul, and Trecia. And also, I want to make sure that you understand that we are growing our little show. It's growing and it's chugging along, and we want you with us. So please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Please. We want to be able to bring you more shows like this and more shows like, live studio shows. So please be sure to share with your friends, family, coworkers. We want to say, hey, have you seen that great podcast from the road? So that's all for now. We look forward to seeing you guys again. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Deuces. Au revoir.
Rhythm and roll. Rhythm and roll.